Hi, I'm Jill. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sewing up this really fun, cute Vonni. It is by Love Lola. It is so cute. Let's have a look at it. On the back we have this really cool shaped pocket. We've got a full slip pocket in here. And inside, under the flap, we have another slip pocket, which is really cool. Its shape is held with these rivets, which is awesome. And it has a turn lock on the front, if I can use my turn lock. So it has some new techniques, which I think you might enjoy. The pattern is down below. So it does come in 3 sizes. This is the smallest, so there is a size to fit every occasion. So if this is the first time to my channel, please do like, comment and subscribe because it does help the algorithm apparently. So grab a coffee, sit back and watch me have fun making up my little tiny Vonni now. Now, I am making the super mini because it is super cute. So let's have a look at everything I've got as I've cut it ready to sew. So let's start with the flap. Now with the flap, there is 3 sections to the flap or 3 lots to it. So what I suggest is cutting your lining off pattern piece A. Then adding a pattern piece B to pattern piece A and cutting your exterior. Now what I've done with my exterior is I have added medium weight interfacing to the edge and a very thin fusible fleece just out of the seam allowances. Then I have trimmed down both those pattern pieces to the dotted line, and that's what I've cut my stabilizer to. So that makes it easy just to go through that system without having to do any bending or folding. Then I have got my base, I have got my exterior and my lining cut off the same pattern piece. I have interfaced my exterior. And then I've cut that pattern piece down to the dotted line and cut my stabilizer. So then we've got our zipper pocket. So we have got 1 back pocket and 2 front pocket pieces. We've also got our zip and our zipper pull to go with those. We've got our cute little back pocket. So again, this is the sublimated waterproof canvas that I've done my little design on. I have interfaced to the edge and again, the very thin fleece out of the seam allowance. Now that is all the stabilizer I'm putting in my pocket and my lining is waterproof canvas. So that will look cute on that. Then we have our body stabilizer, which we're given measurements for in the pattern. We've got our 2 D-ring connectors, which I've prepared. I have drawn a line down the middle and put my double-sided tape on those ready to go. And we've got our main body. Now, I have joined mine because I didn't quite have enough of the fabric. So what I do when I join mine, this is a very thin faux leather, is I actually sew it and glue down the seam really tight because then you don't get a loose piece between the seam. Then you can't even see it's on exactly the same plane. And I have put very thin, it's 1/8 of an inch, 3mm foam in the middle of mine. I'm really liking foam for the structure of bags at the moment. And it doesn't crease, it doesn't get damaged when you fold it through, and it really does look really cool when it's done. So that is the body, and then you need a lining the same as the body. So that's all the fabric pieces we need. As far as hardware goes, I've got 2, put these on white, 2 1/2-inch D-rings. I've got 2 small lobster clasps because I'm not sure if my chain strap will arrive in time, so I can then just make a very thin strap because I'm really liking a very solid thin strap at the moment, and on this kind of bag it would look really cool. I've then got my 4 purse feet, which I need to go find the washers for, and I've got my heart lock, my turn lock. So that is all the hardware we need and all the pieces ready to sew. So let's get on and sew this baby now. So what we're going to do is start with marking up our body and do our D-rings and our D-ring connectors. So first of all, we've got our center point, and what we want to do is find a midpoint here. So I'm going to bring my end into my center point, and that gives us a mark there. So I'm just going to clip a tiny, tiny little V out of there. And that becomes my mark. Now, anything you mark in a project, please use a pen that can be removed and do test it on your fabric first. And then we will do the other side. Just very, very small so I can see where that is. And just leave that up there for now. So now I've already, as I mentioned, drawn my line down the middle. So we'll take those off. I don't know if you can see my silver line underneath. And we're going to fold our middles into that center line, like so, on both sides. So I'll do both of these at the same time. So then we want to draw a line, and we're given this measurement in the pattern, but we're coming down a certain distance from the top. So now we want to put double-sided tape over the top of our join. I'm hesitant to do this because I'm going to get double-sided tape on my D-ring, but I'm just going to go with it. So then we want to take the back off. Of course it doesn't come off properly. Get our D-ring, slide it over the longer piece, and bring that down to the line like that. So we've got our D-ring in the middle, and we pulled it down the line to there, and we're going to fold this other piece over to there like that. Now, if you've got bits sticking out, you can always open this out and give those a little bit of a trim, just so that you can actually fold that in just a little bit more like that. And that way you're not going to see anything on the outside. So we'll do the same with the other side. So now we want another piece of double-sided tape on the back like that. And we're only coming to that line at the top. So that's our D connectors all ready. So we've got our midpoint here, and we want to come down a distance. Now we're given the distance for that in the pattern. So now we're going to take that off and line it up so the top of our D-ring is on that line and in the middle, like that. So you've got the distance from there to the top as that you've been given, and it should be centered on that like that. So again, I've got my mark there, the top of the D-ring. And you can always double check by putting your ruler and double checking, like just sit it up against the D-ring and make sure they're level. So now what we want to do is lift our D-ring off the double-sided tape so that it's open like that, but it's not moving, it's just open like that, so that you've got the bottom bit, which is attached, and we've got a line. So what we're wanting to do now is draw a line in here, like that. And we want to sew a box or a rectangle around that line, like that. So we've got our D-ring the right distance from there. We've opened it up and drawn a line around there. So we're going to go and sew around that box on both sides. So that is all sewn. We need to want to put that back down to where it was before. Now your D-ring might have moved, so just check that it's still at the right distance from the top, because it's easier if you pull your D-ring out the way to sew it. So make sure that's at the right place and put that back down. Make sure it's lined up. And I think for the sake of just 2 seconds to double check it's at the right level, let's do it. So now what we're wanting to do now is do a measurement down. And this is so that we can place some rivets. So we want to come there. So what we're going to do now is punch a hole in each of those and put rivets in. We'll put that aside. So now we're going to do our flap and our back zipper pocket. So we've got our back and our two fronts. So we'll just work on our two fronts. With them right side up, put a piece of double-sided tape along the top. Now I use a 3mm if I'm using a zip. So then we want to take off our double-sided tape. Doesn't stick to the canvas very well. Take our zip and lie it right side down on the top. As you can see, my zip is way too long, and that's fine. So then we want to take this off and sandwich it over the top, like that. So you've got them right sides together if there was a right and wrong with your zip in the middle. And we're wanting to sew down there, like that. We want to then open that up, fold those down, and then top stitch along that edge of the pocket. So now we also want to get our lining of our flap. So what we're going to do now is put double-sided tape along the edge, the right side. So this is the right side up. I know it's hard to see on this fabric. So this is the right side up. And we want to put that right side down on our zip, like that. And then we'll turn that over, put a bit of double-sided tape on there. So then we're going to put our back pocket right side down and make sure that your zip right side together is with your flap lining. So we're now going to sew along there. So that's all sewn. So we want to just lift the flap up over the top. So the seam allowance is going up and so is the flap. The pocket lining is coming down at the back. So now we're just going to top stitch along there, making sure the lining at the back is down flat. So that's what we've got. We've got our flap right side up, pocket, and we've got our back lining right side up. So now we'll just sew along there to close our pocket. So I've trimmed that and I'm going to put the pocket, the zipper pull on from the right. Just pull that into the middle. And now I'm going to baste down there, along there, and back over the zip. So I have sewn and back stitched, or I've basted my pocket on, back stitched over here, trimmed up my zip and melted the edges. In fact, that could probably do with a little bit more of a melt. So now we want to retrieve our flap exterior. Line up our centres. So I'm going to sew around here at the seam allowance in the pattern, and I'm going to double back at the point where my zip is, just so that I've got a bit of extra protection at my zip, and I'm not going to sew along the bottom. So I've sewn those both together. Now I'm just going to trim around my curves like this with pinking shears. And I'm also going to trim my notch a little bit more, or my side a bit more. Now I'm going to turn that through. Now get your fingers in there and push out your curves and your peaks. Give that a bit of a roll if you need to. Now I'm going to wait to trim this end until I've finished my top stitching. Now I'm going to clip all the way around, rolling it out as much as I can at the sides. So now what we're going to do is start stitching half an inch above our zipper tape. So that's about there. So you can put the clip right on the end. So we're going to top stitch from there around the top and back. And I'm going to leave long tails and pull them through and pull them into the inside of the lining. So now we want to stitch from the same distance below there. So we want to start here, and I'm going to go down and come to the bottom. So this top stitching is at a different measurement, so do check what it is in the pattern. So I've basted down I've top stitched down each side. Now we don't come along the bottom, and there's a reason for that you'll see later. So that is our flap all done. So now we want to get our lining. So now we're going to add some double-sided tape to where we stopped or started our top stitch above the zip. So where we started our top stitch, which was a distance above the tape, we're going to bring double-sided tape down there. So we stopped our top stitch up here. We want to bring double-sided tape from that point to the bottom on both sides. Now with our lining right side up on the table, maybe I'll just take the tape backing off first. And line up the centre at the bottom with the centre on the lining, like that. Push that down so it's in place. So now we want to start where we stopped our stitching and come down there. And so from where we stopped down to the bottom. But again, we're still not closing the bottom. Right, so now we want to do some measurements. So we'll turn that over. With it right side down, we want to make a mark at the top and a mark at the bottom. And we are giving instructions for what those should be. Simply draw a line between those two marks. Like that. Now we want to make it right sides together. So we've got, because I drew mine on the wrong side to start with, so right sides together. And we're simply going to sew down that line, staying on the line. So that's all sewn. Now we want to open that out. So we're going to sew down either side of that line, either from the right side or the wrong side, whichever is easiest for your machine. So we're butterflying the seam and top stitching it down either side of it. So it can be a bit tricky. So that's stitched on both sides. You might not be able to see that with the light. So I'm just going to trim down there because we don't need the extra in there. Just if you trim it, make sure you don't catch the back. Like that. So now we want to mark some midpoints here at the top and the bottom. So put your seam, there's my seam, with a centre mark. And mark your top. Do the same at the bottom. Right, and we'll put that aside for now. So now we're going to work on our cute little back pocket. So we're going to put those right sides together. But we want to leave a turning gap in the bottom. So we want to stitch around the whole thing except for a turning gap in the bottom. So again, we want to trim our curves. Just don't trim along the bit that you're going to turn under because that can be a bit tricky. If you haven't got pinking shears, I suggest doing little V's around it. It makes it a lot easier to get a really nice turn on it. And turn that through. Now I've left a bit of a small turning gap. That's okay, we'll get it through. So I'm just going to put my finger in the top and push that through like that. And you want to get something in there that you can really just work that out so you keep your shape on the pocket. I'm going to put some pressure with my finger. I'm not going to put anything sharp in there. So then we want to turn in our end, like so. Now you want this a smooth transition between where you have trimmed. And so if it takes you a little bit of time to get that curve to keep going round, then take it. If you've used a fabric you can press, that can help as well. Like that. So what we're going to do now is top stitch along the top only, because we don't want to come down the side because that's going to be stitched to our bag. So it's top stitch just along the top end. So we have top stitched along the top edge there. So now we want to take our exterior, find our middle point, which is right there, line it up with the middle on our back. So I'm just going to hold that by hand as I sew, lining up the middle points. And we're going to start from where we stopped our top stitching, come down, around and back there, closing the bottom of our pocket. So there's our pocket sewn. That is such a cute little pocket. Okay, so now we want to place our panel right side down and make a mark from the top corner. So this is the top corner and we're giving measurements from each one. So okay, this is a problem for my foam. Okay. So now we're wanting to draw a line, again like we did for the other side. So I'm going to pull my foam back a little bit and trim my foam. So I can do that. So now make sure that the mark further in is at the top of your pocket. So now we want to fold that right sides together. Again using that line as the guide. So we're going to sew down that line there. And then we're going to do it, this is what we did with the back, we're going to open up that seam and top stitch down each side of it. Okay, so that's our top stitching all done. So now we want to mark our center points like we did with the base. So we've got one there. So we're going to come down to the bottom and just put a mark there. So we're lining up our seam with our center back just to get midpoints here, like so. Because now we want to take our back, our base. Now I have marked center points on mine, so we want to turn this back the other way. So we've got our pocket upside down, so the top of the pocket is facing downwards. We want to line up the middle of our center marks on our base with the back and the front. Like so. Now you can either tape, staple, whatever you want to do to keep all this in place. I like to clip out on my flats first. and then clip around the curves. Now, as long as you've got all your seams correctly, this fits perfectly. So I'm going to sew it from that side, and I'm just going to push that down and sew right around that seam at the allotted seam allowance. So again, I'm just going to trim around my corners. Now I have done a second seam for a reinforcement seam, just within the seam allowance. So I'm only trimming around my corners like that. Now it's time to push our baby through the right way. So just work out your corners and make sure they're nicely rounded. Like that. Now I should have marked for my feet, but I want to do my feet when I've put my stabilizer in. So for now I'll leave that as it is. Now we want to get our lining. So with the lining wrong side out, like that. So it's wrong side out. We want to place our exterior inside. Well, let's do it over the top. That'll be easier, wouldn't it? Since one has a base on it and one doesn't. So just hold that together and put it over the top, like that. Now you want to put your flap down in the bag, so just fold that down. Now we're wanting to line up our centre points, like that. And our quarter points. Just push that down if you need to keep it level. Now don't forget, because it's on the inside, it can look like it's not going to fit, but it will. Once you flatten it all out, it'll fit. You might need to keep pulling that down at the back just to make sure it's in place properly. So now we want to sew around there, but we want to leave a gap at the front, like that, for turning and for putting our stabilizer in. So I'm going to leave about that much at the front, which I haven't sewn. So I'm going to sew from here around the back, like that. So as you go, you've got your flap down there, so make sure it's staying well out of the way. So now we want to take our stabilizer. Put 2 bits of big double-sided tape down the back of my stabilizer. Take that off. And you can see better from here with your lining tucked down in the bag. And you want to make sure you get it in the middle. So make sure all your seams are out the side of the stabilizer. like that. That's cool. I'm going to be putting a hole for my feet. So putting my hand either side of the hole. I'm definitely not going to use a knife. I'm just going to use my owl. And that's come right through the base. Like that. So that's what I've got for my purse feet, if you probably can't see. So I've got my purse feet like that in the bottom of the bag. All around my stabilizer. So that's my base, all done. So now we're wanting to bring our lining up out of the bag. So we want to get our body lining. So we want to get a center point on our body stabilizer. But I am going to put a couple of pieces of double-sided tape on there as well. So make sure it's with your center point. Now you can see your seam down the bottom. So you can see that it's lined up exactly on your center. And your center there. And push it right down to the bottom. So you're pushing it down in the bottom. Like that. So the last thing we have to do is our flap. So we want to just push that in between the lining of our flap and our back pocket. And so I'm going to get my hand in and pull it in because you've still got plenty of room. And you want to get it as far down into the flap as you can. Yep. You can feel it's right down into the end. Like that. And it should be well out of the bottom. So then you want to fit your turn as per your manufacturer's instructions, and you are given the distance down at which you want to do that. Right. So we want to reach through the opening in our bag, like that. So now we want to take our base and we want to line up our centre marks. So we've got base and all the lining right side together. Make sure your stabilizer's out flat. And get the centre of your back, which mine is just there. Something from that side. So then we just want to wrangle with that and clip around it. And then around the corners. Now we're just going to sew around there like we did before, right around that seam there, and close up our bag. And again, trim down our seam allowance, especially around our corners. And now push your lining back into your bag. And you want to give that a really good push in there, like be really firm with it because you want it right in the bottom of your bag. Push all four corners in, like that. Okay. So here's our little bag. So now we want to fold our edge in, and clip around the top of our lining. Now you want to keep this straight, so don't be tempted to let it go further or have bigger seams than the rest of it. So that point where the seam is at the front might be quite thick. So you're folding it under by the same as the seam allowance was for the rest of it. Like that. So what we're wanting to do now is roll the rest of the seam, because we're wanting to top stitch right around the edge. So there you go, we want to top stitch around the top of our bag. So that is our top stitching all done. So now we want to take the front and we want to measure out a particular measurement that we're given in the pattern. And you can feel it comes to the end of your interfacing or your stabilizer. So we're just going to put a clip on there and measure out the same from the other side just to be sure. You want to mark for a rivet in there, like that. So if you keep it folded further back, so it should be just under the top stitching like that. So the rivet's going to sit just below the top stitching. So I shall sit them. Okay, so I didn't want to happen like that. Like that. So there's our front two. Now we want to turn it round to the back and we want to fit it snugly around the flap like that. So you can feel it going around the flap. So first of all we want to check that our distance from here to the top of the flap is the same on both sides, else it's going to sit crooked and be a bit weird. So that's all good. So what we want to do now is do the same as we did on the other side. Now you want to come in past all the bulkiness of the seam. So I'm going to come in about there. And about there. Should be right. And that's a lot to punch through if you're punching by hand. Try and hold it together and put your rivet in. And do the same on the other side. Put it all together flat. And set those rivets as well. So this is our little Vonni. She is so cute. So now what we have to do is mark for our flap. So you are given the location of this in the pattern. So there's my turn lock all installed. I've got a bit of glue on there I need to get off. And with it's all done, our feet in, and that is our little Vonni with our pocket in the back and our double pocket there. Very cute. So you could use any kind of strap. I've ordered a longer strap, so hopefully it comes in time. So that's a very cute little Vonni. Love to see what you do with yours. I think it's a really cute little bag.